What would you recommend to someone who does live in another state and they can't find something like Arizona Entrepreneurs locally? What would you tell that person?
Start it.
That's what I'd say too, man.
Because that's what I did.
That's great.
Because I couldn't really find that out here, honestly. And I don't say this in a bad way, but a lot of the organizations and events and like stuff that I would go to out here, like I was by far the youngest person in the room by probably a couple decades. And so it just seemed like there wasn't like a very fresh, innovative organization for the entrepreneurship community. A lot of it was like stale and boring and transactional. That was the differentiation that I noticed. So yeah, you got to go and start it.
I love it. I think that's the way to go, buddy.
Hit me up and I'll help you.
Treading water is the same as drowning to people like you and me. You better start swimming. Welcome to I'm the One podcast. I'm your host, Rob Green. Hey, we've got Devin Butler here today. Devin, great to meet you. I'm excited to talk about what you're working on and how you're able to bring a community of entrepreneurs here in Arizona together. So pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Of course, man. I appreciate you having me here. Excited to dive in.
I love the young guys with all the energy trying to start something on their own and build a community, which I think is really underserved in the entrepreneurial space. So tell me a little bit about Arizona Entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So what Arizona Entrepreneurs consists of today is it's a community for business owners here in the state of Arizona. And really the way in which we've created it is centered around the focus of networking and building relationships. Because like early on in my journey, I was trying to get started off in different business ventures. And I realized very, very early on that it was super important that I start to build relationships with people I can collaborate with, mentors, coaches. I knew I just needed to be in an ecosystem of entrepreneurs. And that's like what sparked the idea to create it. But the core focus is definitely the connection side. So helping people to build relationships and then also supporting them and growing and scaling their companies by bringing on some amazing guest speakers, coaches, people to really educate and empower our members with the proven model and blueprint to scale a business. Because I know you've done a lot in the business space. And once you start to get involved with that, you realize that it's oftentimes like a lot of simple principles that you have to implement into your company to start seeing results.
Now, that's awesome to hear. It's really, really hard as a solopreneur, especially when you're getting started, right? If you don't have a team or you don't have financial backing, how do you get started? You know, how do you find different angles? Do I spend my money here? Do I go down this path? Should I advertise here, right? So there's all these new questions. So how do you guys work? Do you guys get together once a month, or how does the program work?
Yeah, so there's a couple different memberships and ways that we support entrepreneurs. So we have our networking events. We do those every single month. And the best way to look at that is just like a big room full of entrepreneurs in like a cool environment. We always make it very experiential, but there's typically around like 200 to 300 business owners at those events every month. So it brings out a ton of business owners from across the valley. And then in addition to that, we have our Inner Circle Mastermind. So that's for businesses that have hit six figures and above. And that's like our high level mastermind to bring people together that are going through similar challenges and to just create that, to foster that environment of high level entrepreneurs that are really looking for proximity with other people they can collaborate and do business with. And with the Inner Circle, we also do a private mastermind every single month. So that's a monthly thing as well that we do in person.
Let's dive into the 200 to 300 people. Where do you guys hold those at? Is it just a local hotel?
So it depends. Our one coming up next week, our 3-year anniversary event's at Hotel Valley Ho in Scottsdale.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a cool spot. But we do them all around the valley, like a few, like ex-Phoenix. We've done like a lot of different venues, but it's typically like Phoenix, Scottsdale area, East Valley, and just like a big venue that's aesthetically pleasing. That's an important factor to me. I don't like just being in a room with white walls and something that isn't like the right atmosphere, but yeah, just a cool venue that fits the right number of people. And we just get together and just see how we can support one another.
How do you charge for those events?
So the networking events, it's $50 for an event ticket.
Okay.
So $50 to attend those events. And then we also have different membership options. And when you're a member of Arizona Entrepreneurs, like all of that stuff's included. So all the events, you get to bring a guest with you. And
nice.
We have some additional like online resources.
Oh, that's really cool. And then, so you've got the tiered structure, which you see a lot in these kind of information community building businesses. So you've got the funnel at the top of your funnel. You've got the two. How many are in the actual group overall? Would you say? So it's 200 to 300 each meeting, but overall, what's your list look like?
So list, like we have over like 10,000 contacts and like our email and phone number list. So we have like a big list because over the last 3 years of building this community, we've had 5,000 different people in person at our events. So there's been like
that's
a big,
impressive, man.
It's cool, man. It's cool to like see the community coming together, and more importantly, like seeing the actual like transformational results that are coming from being in an environment like that. But yeah, as far as our actual membership base with Inner Circle and our lower ticket, our networking pass membership, we have right around 100 members.
Okay.
And then the events, like I said, 200 to 300 people, like there's probably 200 people there that aren't members, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you said the inner circle is about 100 people.
Yeah.
And is that, how do you charge for the inner circle?
So we have our networking pass and then our inner circle. And our networking pass is our lower ticket funnel. And with that, it's $49 a month. So the price of one event ticket, you get to come to the event, you get to bring a guest with you, you get like a ton of additional resources as far as like coaching and online stuff. So we just made that offer a no-brainer to get people fully immersed in the community versus just coming to one event here, wait 8 months, come again, because then it's hard to really get the value and to pull a lot from the community when you're not like fully engaged. So that's like how we've maintained, keeping in contact with our members. And then our inner circle, that is a 6-month investment. So it's a 6-month commitment to be a part of the inner circle. And that's $2,900 for 6 months. But that covers all the experiences and events that we're doing every month, which is a lot higher end stuff than like a big scale network.
What does that look like? Like what does a typical like inner circle event look like?
So we alternate between bringing on a guest speaker, doing like a high end dinner, and then also doing an activity like something fun. So an example what that will look like. I'm not sure if you're familiar with like Cole Gordon or Joe Polish.
Joe Polish, yeah.
Okay, Joe.
Yeah, Genius Network.
Yeah. So we did one of them at the Genius Network headquarters where we did like a live Q&A with Joe and like gave out his book to all of our members and stuff. So that was like an example of a guest speaker one. For the like fun activity, we've done like a Suns game. We did like this pontoon boat cruise and just like getting our members together to do fun stuff in the community, but also building those relationships with one another. And then as far as the dinner, we've done like STK, the W, just like different high-end restaurants in Scottsdale, Phoenix area, just coming together, breaking bread together and seeing how we could support one another.
When you do special experiences, do they pay separately for that or is that already included?
That's included in the cost.
In the $2,900?
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty cheap.
It is.
I mean, for 6 months, it's basically $500 a month.
Yeah.
Right. So $500 a month and you get everything all included. There's no other nickel and diming after that.
Exactly.
Honestly, that seems a little cheap.
It is.
So I think it's a very fair value, I'd say. One thing, and I'm in a couple groups, specifically e-commerce groups. There's a big one called MDS, 550 people.
Okay.
And then I co-founded a smaller mastermind. We've got 11 core members in it, and we get together 3 times a year. How do you balance the growth aspect of it? Because you want more people, but also the challenge of getting too large, then you lose that intimacy, right? How do you think about that?
So the way in which I think about it is I think there is like a critical mass point to where it's like you can't scale beyond that. So to clarify, we have around 100 members in total in both memberships.
Okay.
Inner circle, we're more around like 30. So it's still an intimate group within the inner circle. But I would say like the critical mass point is probably like right around 100 people, just because with all the experiences, you have to assume that like 30 to 40% of the people aren't going to make it to every single month. So that would be around 50 to 60 people at events, to where I think that's like probably max, to where it still maintains that intimate feel and it is different from just like a big scale event. So that's kind of the metric and the number we have in our mind. But from there, like once you exceed that number, then you have to get creative, whether you create different chapters or different groups within the inner circle. So we haven't crossed that bridge yet, but I would say like that metric, that number for us is probably right around 100 people.
Yeah, I think the challenge really is that, in my experience, people go to a mastermind or an event and they want to just kind of take sometimes.
Yes.
Not everybody.
Yes.
Some people get like that and they get that mode, well, I'm paying, then I want to just show up and take, right?
Yeah.
How do you think about that? And do you think about that in terms of getting everybody to contribute? Because really the value of a mastermind or any type of group is the sum of all parts, right?
Exactly.
It's 1 + 1 = 3. How do you think about that, or how do you keep everybody involved and engaged with that?
No, that's a really good point. That's something that we're like continuing to try to optimize. So I launched the Inner Circle January of 23. So it's been less than a year like building this portion of Arizona Entrepreneurs, but we do a lot to like get our members to engage. So like a lot of the masterminds and experiences that we're doing, we're putting our members in a small group to talk about specific areas. So they're all providing value and support to one another in those small breakout groups. But I think that's like one of our core identity, and like the thing that the message that we're constantly trying to feed into our community is servant CEOs. And nobody says it better than Joe Polish. Like, I don't know if you read his book, What's in It for Them.
I think he sent me a copy.
Did he?
Dan Sullivan. I'm in Strategic Coach.
Yeah.
So Dan's in his program. So I think Dan gave us all a book when it came out. He sent it out to us.
Nice. Great book. But Joe like hit that on the head as far as like, he always says like a comment, like most people are tuned into the radio station, WIFM, like what's in it for me? What can I get from this? And they have that taker energy as far as just trying to take. And instead like changing that concept to what's in it for them. How can I add value to this person? So that's like our servant CEOs, is like, how can we serve, add value to one another, and really be of support within this community. So we're constantly trying to like integrate that framework and dynamic to make sure our members are all abiding by that. But it's interesting because even with the big scale networking events, like I feel like so many people think of networking events and have like a bad taste in their mouth because they've been to those experiences where it's transactional. People are just throwing business cards, trying to sell them on different things. And we've created a really cool culture to where people show up with the intention of like, who can I collaborate with here? How can I support someone else? How can I build relationships that are going to be mutually beneficial? So that's just constantly what we're trying to preach within our community, to where people aren't just showing up with a handout, but instead like, how can I add value to this community?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts on that. One, it's funny. I learned the acronym WIFM. What's in it for me? About more than 20 years ago, I worked at Charles Schwab and I was teaching classes. You have to pass a Series 7 exam to become a stockbroker. And so after I passed it, I decided to teach a class at Schwab for a little while. I was like your age. And I was like, I think I can do this. This will be fun. And they had you go through a instructor course. And that's what they focused on the entire course was what's in it for me, what's in it for them. Like, they don't care about you, really. They care about what they want to do, what they're trying to achieve, right?
Yep.
And I think that's a really key concept. You always think about it. I always try to think about everything from the other person's perspective. Like, how are they seeing this? Even like Amazon, we saw on Amazon, like, how does Amazon want us to act? How does Amazon want us to work with them? Like, how do we make it easy for them to say yes to us? And that's how a really great approach, whether it's an interpersonal relationship, whether it's a business relationship or whatever it might be. Have you considered doing anything, and I'm just spitballing ideas here. Have you thought about anything like a gamification system or anything like that? And like you earn points or leadership or credit or something around adding value. So if somebody adds value, then they move up, right?
Yeah.
Or they get more access to other things, because I think you want to find a way. It's hard when people make good money. Like the more money you make, a lot of people are less likely to put and contribute their time and energy to other people because they're busy. They've got all these opportunities, right? Have you thought about gamifying in any way?
That's a really good question, and I'm always open to ideas and feedback. So let me know if you have some good ideas for it. But we use a platform called School. Okay, that's what we like run our entire back end, like our membership platform on, and they have a gamification process on there. And basically, it like ranks people based on their engagement within the community. So how many videos did they watch? How much are they posting in the community? Things like that. So we have talked about internally with our team about implementing some gamification there, as far as like members that are ranked in the top 3, giving them something or doing some type of give back for those members that are constantly contributing to the community. But we haven't like fully implemented a gamification process. So it's definitely still something at the top of the mind that we're figuring out the best.
Is School the Sam Ovens company?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. I heard him on a podcast recently talk about his school, and because he used to be the consulting guy. Yeah. And so now he went the software route, which is genius. Obviously, better margins and a lot more enterprise value. One thing we've done in our mastermind that's worked really, really well, it's called No BS, is that we force rank, which is not a fun conversation, generally speaking. But let's say we've got 15 people at the event. We're generally between about 11 to 15 people. And what we'll do is you have to force rank. So at the end of the event, a couple days, you have to rank. You rank yourself first, and you rank everybody else 2 through 15. And then we get the aggregated results, and you can tell really quickly, like, hey, listen, your average ranking was 2nd. Amazing. Your average ranking was 14th. Nobody really thought you added a lot of value here. And not in a shaming way, but really like, hey, this is where everybody think, because some people don't have awareness or aren't perceiving themselves correctly.
Exactly.
So it's like, hey, we're just giving feedback to you. And the whole goal, I mean, the dream scenario is everybody's in the middle, right? It never looks like that, by the way. It's always a barbell. It's always heavily weighted at the front and heavily weighted at the back, and only maybe 1 or 2 people in the middle. But the dream scenario is everybody's contributing in the same way, and everybody's adding value. So I think the gamification is, especially with software, is great for the interactions. You may want to consider doing something around that in person.
I like that.
So where, hey, like you could even do something simple like, hey, at the end, tell me the 3 people that add the most value to this meeting, right? And then give that person feedback. You give them a prize. You could do something like that. But a lot of people, I'm not this guy. I'm not really motivated by attaboys. So I struggle with that because I was in corporate America and I never did the gold star thing. I didn't do well with that. I didn't care. It didn't matter to me. But some people love that.
Yeah.
And so I find if you could find some type of recognition that really matches up with the people, but everybody likes to be recognized.
Exactly.
Even if it's not, super important. And then the next meeting you could be like, hey, number 3 person was Devin Butler, number 2, Rob Green, and number 1, bam. and you could just call them up on stage or something like that.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Just to give them some recognition, right?
I like that a lot, especially because like we have a great platform with the networking events we do every month to recognize our inner circle members.
Oh, you do?
Where there's 300 people in the room, and that's like a big recognition point. So I love that idea. And the second we get off this podcast, I'm bringing that to my team. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's always, we've done this now. We've done this for 6 years, 3 a year. So we've had like 18 events and all over the world. And we've iterated and changed in different presentations. Do you have any of the inner circle members do they present at all?
So we haven't to this point. Like we've oftentimes brought in outside speakers as far as like Joe and Cole and like these different people that we have come on to speak and educate our community. But with that being said, that's something that we're also talking about integrating because as of the last like 2 months, we've had like a lot of really big time entrepreneurs join who have built and exited some really big time companies. So we want to make it a lot more peer to peer where our members and our community is actually the one like teaching and sharing the things that they know with other members. So that's something we're like in the process of implementing right now.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, what we've found by doing that is not only do people share more, but they become invested in the success of their peers, right? So some of these friends I've had now in the mastermind for 6 years. I mean, I know their business like in and out. I know their financials. I mean, I went with 2 of them to Amazon last week for a meeting. I know, so I'll see ideas. One of the women has a home goods company. And I'm like, hey, have you seen this idea? You should borrow this idea or model and create a product around this. So we all become kind of invested in it. One of the guys has a pickleball brand, up and coming, like high end pickleball paddles. Like a few of the professionals play with his paddle. It's Carbon is the brand, CRBN.
Okay.
And so they're a couple $100. They're really nice. I don't play much, but when I do, I play with his. And he's different. I'm like, oh hey, what about this? You need maybe a pickleball machine, battery operated. You could bring out there and throw pickleballs at me, right? So it's fun to see that, and we kind of all invest in each other a little bit more. But it's because we've built that up. Because when my experience, when you share with somebody else and you give them an idea, one, you want to see them win. And 2, if that person gives feedback, hey, Rob, I took that idea, I ran with it, and then this was my result, you're more likely to get that person to give more feedback.
Exactly.
Because, as experience-wise, nobody wants to give feedback, and then they go, oh, I forgot to do that.
Exactly.
Why am I wasting my breath? I don't want to help you. So next time we talk, you better have implemented some of these ideas.
Yep.
I want to hear how they go. I want to see how it works.
I got you.
I want to see how it works because, I truly believe like there are so many things we can focus on. Even with a team, it's always a challenge. Yeah. Where do we spend our time and energy? We do another. I'm going to give you a bunch of recommendations today, but another one we do a board of directors. And so sometimes, generally speaking, each person has to do a board of directors meeting presentation, which is about them and what their current state of their business is, challenges, things are going well. And then everybody else gives feedback to that person. Hey, maybe you should consider doing this. Have you thought about this? Or I think that's a terrible idea, or I think that's a great idea. So we all give feedback to the person for free. If it's a board of directors, it's amazing, right? Then the other side is they have to give value to us. So each person has to deliver value-oriented, preferably like a standard operating procedure, an SOP or something like that, so that they can take it and give it to their team, hopefully, so their team can implement. Right, so that's how we structure it.
I like that.
But and I know there's a couple other different groups out there, EO and Vistage, and some of these other guys do like Tiger 21. They do like defending their portfolio, so they'll share their portfolio of investments, and then they have to kind of defend it. Okay. Other people are like, hey, why are you so heavily weighted in cash or equities or whatever it might be? So I think what that does is it fosters that you get in the habit of doing it, right?
Yeah.
You get in the habit of sharing, adding value, and then you're like, okay, this person really helped me, right? And I think that if you do that, or do more of that, I should say, not that you're not doing it already, but more of that, the cumulative value will skyrocket of that group. And I know from my experience that a lot of people, it's like, this is the one group they go to. Like, this is really the main group I'm in is the mastermind, because like that's the one I would not give up. It's the last one I would ever have to give up. And I don't really like traveling that much anymore, except for fun. But for business, I try not to travel much. That's the last group I would give up. So it really creates that prioritization for your group. And because the cumulative value is so large.
Yeah.
So it might be something to consider.
That's amazing. I appreciate you sharing that. And like to your point, I think it really just helps with retention and people wanting to stay a part of the community and plugged in because they're contributing, they're like providing results and supporting other members in the group, which is like very fulfilling, especially once you've reached that next level in business. Like I've noticed a lot of those people want to help and and give back. So I really like it. I didn't know I was going to get all these great ideas to come back to my team with.
Well, it puts a little fear in people. Like
Yeah.
anybody that's successful doesn't want to look bad. Right. And so I've had, some people in the group will call me like the week before and like, hey man, I got to present. I don't know what I should present on. We talk all the time. What do you think I've done I can't remember what I did. What have I done in the last quarter or last 4 months that I could add value to the group? Right. And so it puts a little bit of fear when you start presenting because you're like, oh, I want to be respected. I want to add value to the group. I want to participate. Right. And then you also weed out some of the people who don't. Some of the people who are like, and they'll just mail it in, right? And you're like, okay, well, maybe this isn't the right fit for you. And, we want to grow. And you're only as strong as your weakest link. And the number one thing we've learned is we got to protect the culture. Like we can't have people that just don't, they mail it in, they don't show up, they miss meetings, they don't present well. I mean, that kind of stuff, they don't care enough. And if I've got to care more than you do about it, then we got a problem. And so I think that's some things that I've learned that you might have some experience with that might want to try out some different ideas on how to bring that home.
For sure. Trying them all.
All right. I love it. I love it. Where do you see Arizona entrepreneurs going next? I mean, so honestly, it's really impressive what you built so far, especially having that many inner circle mastermind members. How many, where do you want to take this? What do you see the next couple of years?
Yeah. So really to start, like the reason I started is because it's like what I needed myself. So I was new to Arizona, trying to start in my first business, had no clue what I was doing. And I went to a lot of different communities out here, tried to get plugged into different communities. And I saw like a lot of the transactional conversations and just talking to people that were just trying to sell me a product or service. And what I was really looking for was like authentic relationships, friendships with other people who were building companies. And so as far as like the next step and like where I want to take this, like I want Arizona entrepreneurs, whether it's like the young version of Devin who's just getting started off in his entrepreneurial journey, or someone who has scaled a really big business to where you can get plugged into the community and immediately get value and get resources and connections with people that you want to be around. So that's the main thing, is really positioning Arizona entrepreneurs as the hub for business owners in the state of Arizona. There's like a couple other organizations that come to the top of mind when you go to a new state and you want to get plugged into the business community. So I really want to continue to elevate our brand authority within the state and bring some amazing people together. But the interesting thing, and this is something that I haven't like shared a ton publicly, but the interesting thing is like doing these events for the past 3 years, there's been a lot of people who have like flown into our events, especially like our conference, our summit that we do once a year, people that fly in from other states. And it's happened probably 15 to 20 times without me even putting any attention towards it. But this is like what my vision is and what I want as a next step. But a lot of people are like, Devin, I have never seen like a community like what you're doing here in Arizona and where I live in this state. And I want to start what you're doing there. Like how do I do it? So whether it's chapters, whether it's franchising, whether it's licensing, like I don't know the exact model and what that's going to look like, but I'm feeling very called to like duplicate this model elsewhere and help people to build exactly what we built here in different regions. So that's going to be the next step after we get everything, finished with, building our team, the systems, automations, like everything in place to where I can start to focus on that next chapter within growing and scaling this nationally. That's going to be the next move.
I love it. I love it. I think there's definitely a need for this. There's no question in my mind. Everybody that I know can benefit from something like this, where they've got other people to bounce ideas off of. And really a lot of it comes down like curation. What I mean by that, a buddy of mine just messaged me earlier today. He's like, hey, what was that software you were talking about? Here's the software you should check out. It's for TikTok shops. Get in there, test it out, try it out. This is the one. I've already looked at 10 of them. This is the one you want to use, right? Yep. Just that simplification and that curation, and even like trusted vendors. Hey, I've got 10 people use this CPA, 10 people use this lawyer. I mean, we all learn the same things, and if you can streamline that and save time and get a better result, I mean, it's just beneficial for everybody. So I really respect and appreciate what you're doing.
I appreciate that, man. I totally agree with that. Like the human connection component and being able to have people in your corner who are also building businesses, but like it all comes down to that, whether it's a vendor or, a business challenge you're going through. I think that's the main one, to where it's like, okay, I cannot figure out how to figure out these Facebook ads. What do I do? And then you talk to someone in the group who runs a Facebook ads agency or whatever. Like there's just so many different challenges in your businesses that could be solved by being around the right people and being in the room with people who have solved that problem already in their own company.
What would you recommend to someone who does live in another state and they can't find something like Arizona Entrepreneurs locally? What would you tell that person?
Start it.
That's what I'd say too, man.
Because that's what I did.
That's great.
Because I couldn't really find that out here, honestly. And I don't say this in a bad way, but a lot of the organizations and events and like stuff that I would go to out here, like I was by far the youngest person in the room by probably a couple decades. And so that's as far as like having a need in the market here, it just seemed like there wasn't like a very fresh, innovative organization for the entrepreneurship community. A lot of it was like stale and boring and transactional. That was the differentiation that I noticed. So yeah, you got to go and start it.
I love it. I think that's the way to go, buddy.
Hit me up and I'll help you.
I love it. Where can people find you? How should they reach out to you?
Yeah, Instagram, I would say, is probably the best. So it's my personal is Devin Ray Butler, and Arizona Entrepreneurs is just Arizona Entrepreneurs spelled out.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you coming on. I look forward to hearing afterwards. Maybe we'll have you back on after you implement some of these ideas.
For sure.
And see what happens, help you speed up the growth a little bit. Yeah. I'd like to come to an event. It'd be fun.
Yeah.
Come to an event and see how it goes.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming, buddy.
Of course, man. I appreciate you.
All right, take care. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with friends. Visit I'mTheOne.com and ask me anything. And as always, stay curious and never stop becoming the one.